Hiya folks, Carl James here from Electric Media Madness, joining me for another little update to a recent episode of Strange Tales where I talked about Sophia Stewart and her claims that she's copyrighted credited creator of the Matrix story and the Terminator franchise as well. Following the video, I was contacted in the comment section of the video by a drop of water salted with fire, also known as @Abyssinian Emerald, who's given me some real good information and I wanted to share it with you. If you hadn't already read it, there is at least one source I found that has the court case and judgments and opinions of the judge, which I found pretty interesting. If you search for the case text Stewart versus Wachowski plus appeal, you should find it. In brief, it states that Stewart was trying to go after the defendants using RICO, R-I-C-O, which could not show that there was a racketeering enterprise. In fact, there is a lot of mention of Stewart and enterprise in the case. Also mentioned in the case is that Stewart both admitted that the third eye did not bear a striking resemblance to any of the Terminator or Matrix films, and neglected to supply the court with copies of those films so they could be compared with her work. Stewart seemed to mostly be claiming that it was her characters which were lifted from the third eye and put into the Matrix, and that she had legal rights to the entire idea of the evolution of consciousness, which the judge dismissed, the former because there were no materials provided by the plaintiff to compare with. Stewart did request that the judgment be amended, but on the grounds that the judge had made an error in judgment. She also could have, at the time, supplied the court with copies of the movies she was claiming infringed on her copyright, but she did not, and the judge made comments about that further down in the conclusion. So, quote, Stewart contends that her failure to submit defendant's files in opposition to defendant's motions for summary judgment was due to her attorney's neglect. It is clear that Stewart's counsel failed to submit the files, perhaps because he misconceived the burden of producing evidence in the summary judgment context, or perhaps through sheer carelessness. Generally, counsel's carelessness or ignorance of the law does not constitute excusable neglect. More was said that alluded to further negligence on part of Stewart's attorneys, and so that might be why she was later able to get some remuneration from the legal team. Ultimately, though, it comes down to how similar the works are. Abyssinian Emerald continues. One other thing I thought was interesting was that Stewart's FBI claims were addressed in the case documentation, and apparently this is a thing that supposedly tied her work to the Terminator franchise. I'm going to come to that in a moment. Stewart's final contention regarding access concerns statements purportedly made to her in 2001 by FBI employees regarding her investigation of a criminal copyright claim. Stewart asserts the FBI developed evidence that established her as the writer of the movie The Matrix and the Terminator because the FBI explained to her in 2001 that the Terminator series and the Matrix trilogies were from the same source work, and all of her key characters in the Matrix had been identified from Stewart's work. Because they are offered for the truth of the matter asserted, the statements the FBI purportedly made to Stewart are hearsay and inadmissible for the purpose of ruling on defendants' motions for summary judgment. Other than these hearsay statements in Stewart's declaration, the only evidence proffered regarding the FBI investigation is an unauthenticated one-page FBI form that contains no reference to Stewart's claim and that has a single handwritten comment. Looks like a 295E case. Although she relies on this statement in opposing summary judgment on the issue of the Terminator defendants. And I wonder why. I will come to that in a minute. Stewart has adduced to no evidence as to what a 295E case is. Thus, even if she were able to offer testimony in opposition to defendants' motions for summary judgment, Stewart's statements regarding the FBI investigation are inadmissible hearsay, and the FBI document she proffers is unauthenticated and thus inadmissible. The document, moreover, contains no information that relates obviously to access or to any other element of Stewart's copyright infringement claim. Finally, Stewart contends that she has raised a triable issue of fact regarding the Matrix defendants' access because FBI agents purportedly told her in 2001 that their investigation of the criminal copyright claim had established her as writer of the movie The Matrix and the Terminator, as she does in opposition to the Terminator defendants' motion for summary judgment. Stewart again attempts to rely on an authenticated one-page FBI form which does not indicate that it concerns Stewart's claim and which contains a single handwritten comment. Looks like a 295E case. Stewart also asserts that FBI Special Agent John Barras told her The Matrix 1 was edited to remove an introduction allegedly copied from her work. Stewart's hearsay statements concerning remarks purportedly made by FBI agents are not admissible. The FBI document is likewise inadmissible as it is unauthenticated. We have repeatedly held that authenticated documents cannot be considered in motion for a summary judgment. That's the law on that one. Even if it were considered, moreover, the document contains no information regarding the Matrix defendants' access to Stewart's literary works or any other element of a copyright infringement claim. So overall, it sounds like Stewart either had no real case to begin with, or a legal team destroyed her chances of presenting one, or perhaps a combination of both. After reading the case document, though, I'm inclined to think that maybe Stewart saw genuine connections, at least in her mind, between her work and the Matrix, and thought, or was even tricked by some prankster FBI agent into thinking, she had a case against the defendants, when in fact she probably didn't, meaning the works aren't similar enough, from the sound of it, that she would be able to prove infringement even had her attorneys not failed to produce the relevant materials, or the whole thing could be contrived as a social engineering agitation propaganda performance. So there's some really great information here. It's really useful. I'm not a legal expert, far from it. I understand the very, very basics of how these things work, but I've looked at the information. It is corroborated. I've spoken to a few people who know a little bit more about the law than me, and it does seem to back all of that up. So what we have now is a stalemate situation in a way, because despite the overwhelming evidence that she didn't win her copyright claim, she's still saying that she is. And I'm going to go to a little clip where she does say it. I think about 10 months ago she's saying it. There's a channel on YouTube called Craze the King of Content, Craze with a K, and the video is entitled "The Copyright Say Sophia Stewart, creator of The Matrix and Terminator, in a Heated Debate."
They are my movies.
No.
No, stop. You're making confusion here. You're confusing people here. You're telling people something whack.
No.
Go back. No. You are. Go back to docket 282.
Right.
And look at the copyrights to the movies. The copyrights say Sophia Stewart owned them.
So she's still banging that drum, and as myself and a number of other people have discussed this subject, and we've said, people put in the comments as well and things like that, there is still this case of people being plagiarized all the time in Hollywood. It might just be just a handful of ideas, and it gets rewritten to the point where it's completely different, or it might be substantially, and they change just a few things so they can get around copyright law and things like that. That kind of thing goes on all the time, and is unacceptable. People, as I said in the previous video about this, people do deserve to get their just desserts if they've, created something that's their intellectual property. But I think one of the things that I came across recently, which is the real final, this is outside of all the legal stuff, this is people like me who don't perhaps understand the finer points of the legal stuff. If you want to sort of bolt it down to one specific thing, which is how she seemingly changed the publication date of her story to 1983 so that she could then include the Terminator film into her copyright claim court case. The thing about the Terminator film is that it actually, and I'll read something out generic for you in a moment so you can get an idea of what it's about, was actually plagiarized by the excellent science fiction author Harlan Ellison. And he wrote countless books, he wrote countless episodes of television, wrote films, things like that. So what I will do now is just basically I don't like going to this place, Wikipedia, but I'll just give you a generic version. Harlan Ellison stated that he loved the movie and was just blown away by it. That's the Terminator. But believed the screenplay was based on a short story, an episode of The Outer Limits, that's a 1960s series, that he had written titled Soldier, and threatened to sue for infringement. Orion settled in 1986 and gave Ellison an undisclosed amount of money and added an acknowledgement credit to later prints of the film. Some accounts of the settlement state that Demon with a Glass Hand, another Outer Limits episode written by Ellison, was also claimed to have been plagiarised by the film, but Ellison explicitly stated that the Terminator was a rip-off of Soldier rather than Demon with a Glass Hand. James Cameron was against Orion's decision and was told that he did not agree with the settlement. He would have to pay any damages if Orion lost a suit by Harlan Ellison. James Cameron replied that he had, quote, "no choice but to agree to the settlement. Of course, there was a gag order as well, so I couldn't tell this story, but now I frankly don't care. It's the truth." Now, I have somewhere in my possession the Outer Limits on DVD. I watched them fairly recently because of this subject. The two episodes, Demon with a Glass Hand and Soldier, and there are some uncanny similarities between those two episodes and the Terminator film. Specifically, you have this idea of a artificial being travelling back from the future, fighting a war against combatants and all that kind of thing, which is, I mean, that's actually in Demon from a Glass Hand. And so it's interesting that wasn't actually used by Harlan Ellison as well, because I would actually say that I think personally there are more similarities with Demon with a Glass Hand than there are with Soldier, but that's my own personal opinion. There's even this scene where you see the hand, you know, the glass hand, and it's just like the scene from the Terminator when Schwarzenegger cuts off the skin and you see the robotic arm and all that kind of thing. So what we have here is a clear-cut case. Irrespective of the finer point of the plagiarism case that happened with the Terminator and Harlan Ellison, it's pretty obvious. You only have to watch the episodes to see. Now, Soldier is the first episode of season 2 of The Outer Limits. It was based on a 1957 short story, Soldier from Tomorrow, and the episode was broadcast on September the 19th, 1964. That's the first episode. So bear this in mind, a short story, 1957. Then the episode broadcast in 1964. Then you have the 5th episode of season 2, Demon with the Glass Hand, which was broadcast, first originally aired on October 17th, 1964. So this is like 20 years before the Terminator was made. And it seems pretty obvious that that was ripped off. I mean, the parties settled the lawsuit for an undisclosed amount of money, and there was an acknowledgement of Ellison's work in the credits at the end of the Terminator, and those credits were added to the home video release of the Terminator, and it read acknowledgement to the works of Harlan Ellison. So that takes us back to Sophia Stewart. Sophia Stewart, whenever she does, I mean, maybe you could argue that she might have slightly stronger case of saying the Matrix, but I think that was, as Abyssinian Emerald said, you know, the sticking point is when the Terminator gets dragged into it as well, because that clearly is a situation where a film that's been acknowledged now as being based on the works of Harlan Ellison. And if that's the case, then if Sophia Stewart wrote her story in 1983 or 1980, early 80s, 1964, with a short story for Soldier in 1957, I mean, depending on where you look on the internet, there's variations on this one, but anywhere between 1962 and 1967 was when Sophia Stewart was born. So if she was born, if we say generously, she was born in 1962, she would have been 2 years old when those episodes of The Outer Limits were broadcast. Now, it's possible that she may have seen them when she was 2 years old, and they stuck in her mind, and they inspired her to write The Third Eye, and therefore she realised, you know, it's a possibility. But Soldier, which is the one that the plagiarism case was based on with Harlan Ellison, that was written in 1957. So even if she was born in 1962, that was 5 years before she was even born. So maybe she just reached into the consciousness out there and just dragged it into, I don't know. I mean, I'm being very flippant about this, but I think there's come a point now where Sophia Stewart banging that drum, particularly where the Terminator is concerned, it's getting harder and harder to see the fact that she had good grounds for a case to sue. Certainly in the way she did try to do it, dragging the Terminator into it as well. So I think hopefully with the information that I've put out from Abyssinian Emerald and these little tidbits from the Outer Limits connections and Harlan Ellison connection as well, I think it pretty much speaks for itself. So I think we can, for now anyway, because you never know what's around the corner, things might change, but for now I think we can close the book on that one. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff that YouTube hates but we love. It really does make a difference and I truly appreciate it. And I will see you again very, very soon. Bye bye for now.